to the front of the net. Puck work to the outside to Eklund. Howe back to Eklund again. Kerr sparring with Stevens in front. Eklund creeps behind. Out in front to Kerr. He scores! Tim Kerr and the Flyers are perfect on 5-on-3s. They are 3 for 3. Get their first power play goal of the night and tie the game.
Everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
And yes, we are back. It is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 133. One down, only 81 to go. No sweat. The Flyers had their opener the other night versus the Vancouver Canucks. And back with us tonight for the first time after a little bit of a hiatus, taking care of people in the community, is Chef B. How are you, man?
Very good, thank you.
And also with us, maybe later tonight, will be the great Dan Silver. Dan is on the road. He went to the Flyers game. He has been on a road trip to catch a lot of sporting events, and he's going to be traveling. So we don't know if we'll have Dan tonight, but that's okay. Chef, look, the Flyers came out against the Vancouver Canucks, played a fantastic first period, came out with a 1-0 lead on Joel Farabee's first goal of the season for himself and, of course, the team. And then the second period happened, and I'll let you take it from there.
It was, well, like you said, the first period was very, very encouraging. You're sitting there thinking, oh, wow, man, this is what this team could be. And you imagined it on paper, and you went, okay, it's playing out well. Then the second period comes out, and they come out a little flat. And then, a couple unlucky bank shots on Carter Hart and a couple, you can blame it on positioning. Let's just say positioning, but I'm sure we'll talk about it. So I'll just leave it at that for now. We're going to dive deeper into that. And then the third period comes around and Hart's back. It seems like he's back to his first period status. He seemed pretty sharp in the third, and he seemed really good in OT and until we got to the shootout, which I don't like anyway, but otherwise, the notes I took away from the game that, Carter Hart needs a little bit more tweaking. But the encouraging stuff is when this team would let up 4 goals last year, did you think they were coming back from it unanswered? No. And I didn't see that. I don't know. When Cam Atkinson scored that goal, it was like electricity running through that building. He had so much energy. And he went to that bench and he fired everybody up. And like I said, I've said it on other shows that I've been on. When I was on the radio before, I've said it. Never underestimate the importance of rah-rah guys on your team. These are the guys that gets everybody fired up. I've had people tell me they should be able to get fired up. They're professional athletes. You know what? There's always somebody that can make you run through a brick wall. And the Flyers have now got 4 or 5 guys like that. They're not letting up. The shoulders didn't go down. You might have seen it like this, like, okay. And then a couple plays later, they're back in it. the team didn't give up, and that's what I like about it. I think they're gonna when they get a full complement, when Risto is back and a couple other things, some people get out of COVID protocol and such. I think they're going to be very entertaining to watch. I don't think you can ever going to be able to count them out of a game, especially after seeing what we saw last night without a full complement of the crew.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. There were some things in that game that I thought looked pretty good. There were some other things, especially in that second period, that kind of made you feel like, wow, are we seeing a replay of last year with Carter and the PK? But then you saw the resilience that you had referred to when they came back. Really key goal by Atkinson, like you said, driving the net the way he did. And was that Brassard that threw the pass to him?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Really, he's going to be really an important player. And I remarked about how dependent the Flyers are on a lot of low-salary veterans right now, at least to get through the early part of the season, and hoping Kevin Hayes won't take too long to get, unwound and get his sea legs. And then Miller scores that goal to bring it to 4-2 by the end of the second period. That was a real crusher, and that's when Carter really looked shaky in net. He didn't have post integrity, and really probably didn't want to move once he wasn't sure where the puck was, just to kind of go flat and let it go. And that's the unsure moment that I didn't, you referred to the positioning with the Podkolzin goal. One of the things I asked Jason Martinez that he talked about on his podcast was, did Carter commit one of those sins that Kevin Woodley talks about a lot? And we'll get into him in the meeting of his goalie coaches in the offseason. I think it's an important story. But I just felt like on that goal that he kind of took himself out of making the save with his positioning. When he went to make the save, it's almost like the puck is in the air, and he takes himself out of position to make that save. That's something Kevin talked about. And that speaks to a goalie who may not be on his game. And, he didn't play. He was supposed to play that Washington game. He only played half of that one game, I believe, or two periods. And then he played, the whole game, I think, in his second appearance, and he was sharp. But it could be rust, and then rust might have turned into nerves. I don't know. But I think it's a fair point. With somebody, we talked about having a mental coach and all this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What are we concerned about? We're instantly taken back to that point in Boston where he kind of lost it a little bit. And I know, look, it's only one game, but that was a hell of a bad period. So some of it was on him. Some of it was the PK didn't do their job. But the bottom line is they were down 4-2. But look, they got the point. He looked overmatched. As good as he looked in the third period in the OT, they built momentum. He looked really overmatched in the shootout. I'm trying not to be too judgmental, but can you blame me for thinking in those terms?
Well, I'll tell you two things. On the one goal, and I thought I was the only one to sit there like, why would Travis Sanheim do that? And then I saw Cross and Broad, and I was reading what San Filippo said. He's like, in that one goal where he's hugging the post and he doesn't want to move, he talks about how Travis Sanheim should have taken the player and cleared the crease and let Carter Hart just stand still. So I think him going for the puck was a bad thing there. I mean, the one thing you want somebody to do when you're a goaltender is you want to clear the porch, and keep people out of the way. And one thing I noticed, I'm like, just move him, just push him. I could see it. I could see it there. I'm like, just push him out of the way. Yeah, and it's like, you see that, and that I think that one was just like I said. It's to me, it's positioning. I think he's one thing that they talked about. Might have been Jason Martinez, about how Martin Jones, they want him to play back further because, it's better for his style, better for his game. I don't know if they moved Carter Hart back. It seems like they did a little bit. Maybe maybe that's him adjusting to him being more set back than he's used to. Who knows? But in overtime, I'll tell you this: it looked like he was guessing. He was guessing because he was like committing before the shot was really going. So he's guessing. He's like he might be overthinking it, looking at the guy in front of him. Oh, he's going to go hard, glove side or whatever. And it just seemed like he was guessing. He was already going somewhere by the time, the play was being made. You know what I mean? And it's never good when goalies start guessing.
No, it's not. I would say with Martin Jones has more size. So it's really the bigger guys you want, generally speaking, rule of thumb. You want back into the net a little more, whereas Carter, being a little smaller, has more precision built into his game. And I don't think they moved him back. I think it was more about his positioning in general and staying within what he does. It wasn't really going to be a fundamental change as much of them trying to get him back to better habits.
Maybe just being aware of of where he's at.
Where he's at, there's different levels.
Awareness, yeah.
Right. This is the stuff that Woodley and Valaket talk about when you hear Jason Martinez talking about, what part, the different levels and the depth that goaltenders strive for. And a lot of it is dependent on their athleticism, their size, and, the type of situation, perhaps, whether they play a little bit differently when they're defending a power play versus 5-on-5, gets in a little deeper into the weeds. But I felt that, you make a good point there. Sanheim should have taken out his man. JT Miller just walks right in there. And but hey, listen, we got to talk about, TK gets that third goal to bring it within one. But what about that brilliant play between Couturier and Giroux to tie it up and clinch that point for the Flyers? And
it's so funny.
It's a bank shot. They're playing pinball out there. And it was like that all night. Elias Pettersson got a goal, kind of like a bank shot off the boards. Went on. Again, I didn't like Carter's position on that one. But getting back to the good news, tying the game 4-4, at Couturier, it's almost like a set play. Clearly it was. And Giroux went for that shot and it went in.
Well, I'm trying to remember. I've been listening to a whole bunch of podcasts here and there. And it might have been Coatsy. I forget. Somebody's talking about how they would mark the dashers with like Sharpies and know where to bank and play games like that. So, and they would mark up the dashers, and that way they knew where they had to hit something, like if they were going for an empty net or something along that lines. But also like that, I was like, what's he doing? What's he pointing at? Is he telling him to go behind the net? And then literally a second later, I'm like, no way. And I think I put it, that had to be a set play because, Coots, I don't even think he looks up. He looks at it, sees that, and he just fires it there. Like literally a second later, it was like yours. A lot of times anymore is, I think they wait for the play to develop too much. They're waiting for, they wait too long to make a pass or something like that. But this, it was like right away. It was like it was something they must have done in practice or along those lines. It looked like it might have been a set call. So, I went with that. I was like, this is brilliant. That was amazing. I love to see more stuff like that, and I want to see more exciting stuff coming out of like power plays. I want to see that. I want to see that kind of puck movement like they did towards the end when they pulled their goalie.
Yeah, and more goal line stuff. On the power play, to just kind of play it east-west or north-south without getting behind the net or on the goal line and getting some of those passes, because they have some shooters now. TK can take a pass from below the goal line, or Atkinson, or even Farabee now. His shot, it just seems like it's gotten that much stronger. So hopefully there's some potential for that. As we move on, and from a slight disappointment, it could have been really bad with that second period. Before the game even started, Cam Atkinson's grandmother, Marge, takes a trip on the Zamboni with the sweater turned the other way around with the name Atkinson right there. And it's they're just different kind of folks, but it's all positive. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. See this. You need guys in the locker room that are motivators that can keep it loose too at the same time, but at the same time have a professional feel about it. And I think that's where they walk the fine line with some people. But there was another. It was a tweet out there. It was during preseason where I think it was the puck being left behind the net by Carter Hart, and Yandel comes flying by and he goes, "Thank you," and he just thanked Carter Hart, and it became like a little bit of a thing there, and they just thought it was funny, like stuff like "Thank you," for like setting up a puck. They have that group of people now that can keep everything light and make it like, hey, we're playing on the pond again. Where it's fun to come to work. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It wasn't a lot of white knuckles on sticks the other night. It was fun. It kind of cratered a little bit, like we've referred to in the middle session. There is a playfulness, but a fun atmosphere around the team, and you hope that can translate in these guys being able to say, hey, it's a game. Let's go have fun. We got enough talent here to be a good team and be a playoff team, and who knows what can happen. Mm-hmm. And we talked last week, Chef, and I said to Charlie, and Charlie agreed. I mean, what we're seeing with the team now, I mean, Rasmus Ristolainen hasn't even played one game. He skated today in practice. Looks like he's going to suit up because they sent Nick Seeler down to Lehigh Valley. So we're going to see him. Patrick Brown, who they claimed. To me, it looks like, and you can comment on this, it looks like he's somebody that if he looks more impressive than Nate Thompson, because if they're not getting it done on the PK, they're not going to play around with a 37-year-old guy as much as they like him. And he might be somebody who's like he's one of those security blanket players for AV, and AV is known to be that kind of coach. But if this guy has a little more size, a little more speed, he's younger, he's 29, he's in COVID protocol. Hopefully he won't have any long COVID or any problems like that, and maybe just got exposed. You never know until they come back.
Yeah.
And they picked up Zack MacEwen, right? And Zack MacEwen is 6'3", 210, something like that. Tough guy, fights a lot, but he's actually been in AHL score. He scored 20 goals, I think, a couple times at that level. So even with that, we're not sure the team we see before the 1st of December is going to be the same team we see March 1st.
Oh yeah. All right. Let me address Brown first. Brown is obviously he's a Kevin Hayes connection, right?
Right.
Six degrees of Kevin Hayes now.
Yeah.
Is that what we're playing on the Flyers? Well, it's funny because I think when we saw that they were hitting on all cylinders is when Kevin was hitting on all cylinders. So is he like the Jimmy Rollins of this team? I don't know. Maybe, because if you're trying to put people around that have the same kind of temperament and play style as him, I think they're trying to build something around that for now or for a couple years to come. But I think that was interesting when they pulled him. And with Zach, everybody's looking out there now. Everybody's looking for that factor that the Capitals have. And what do the Capitals have? Wilson. So, I mean, they want some big guy that can, be a little bit, tough here, but not be a waste on your roster. The days of goons are over. You have to be able to score. You have to be able to play the game. I mean, Wilson's like what? He's on the top. Is he the top line or second line for Washington?
Oh yeah. He's a top line player most of the time.
That's what I mean. Like, and he's somebody. When he steps on the ice, you know where the hell he is all the time. You're not going to get caught with your head down with Wilson out there. And I think every team out there is trying to look for that. Maybe the Flyers think that Zack MacEwen, he's somebody that can grow into that role. Like you said, he scored a little bit, so it's not like you're just going for goon status. He had, 6 fights last year, I think it was?
I think it was.
So it's not like over the top either. But also at the same time, this team got pushed around a lot last year, a lot last season, and it's this. I think they're looking to try to increase the goals, the camaraderie, and let's not get pushed around again. This team, like Kevin, Braun said, he was like soft. I've never seen a weaker team or a softer team. They're not going to be that team this year. They're not going to be a team that lets you give up on each other. So I think that's what all these signings and all this, what we got to look forward to. I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to be out of the game ever.
Yeah, I think what Braun actually said, just to be drilled down on precision here, he said they were fragile, right?
Oh, fragile, that's it, yeah.
Right. So, and let me correct myself. Zack MacEwen scored 20 goals in 2019 with the Utica Comets and has not done that since. So I stand corrected there. But still.
But I think he was on the taxi squad, wasn't he? Because he didn't get into any games, I don't think, last year. Or was it COVID season? Like the shortened season, when it was the bubble season.
Yeah, there was something like that. He didn't get in in the NHL, right? Yeah, I'm looking at the record. He did get in 17 games in 2020 and in 34 games in 21. So, yeah, listen, I don't know. I don't even think he's a Wilson Light. I think he's a fourth line guy, but when he gets out there, he apparently, and we won't know until he gets his chance, right? So we won't know, but he apparently is a guy that won't be one-dimensional to the point where, it's just he's there to fight, and if he doesn't do that, he's not going to be in the lineup. No, he's going to challenge. I mean, a guy like Nick Aube-Kubel, if he starts taking dumb penalties, his place in the lineup is going to be threatened. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, Max Willman's, he takes a bad penalty the other night, but I mean, he's not going to be here. It's going to be Patrick Brown and Zack MacEwen, and I think they're competing for spots on the roster, and Brown can play center. He's right-handed, so he's either going to play right wing or center. So you can't live and die by your fourth line, but they want to optimize everything they have because they need to. They're a lunch pail team, right? Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me. There's not a lot of room elsewhere in the lineup. So if you're going to finagle or make some changes, definitely at the bottom of the lineup. And even though, like I said, they like Nate Thompson, if that PK doesn't do better, then they're going to give these other guys a chance to contribute. So yeah. So that is more or less the state of where they're at right now. It was interesting. I was watching the Phantoms game last night. Now, they are in action today in Hershey, and I don't have an update on that, but they were behind the eight ball. They were losing in that one, so we'll get you an update when we get a chance. So, yeah, Bob Rotruck, the announcer, was saying he thinks Felix Sandstrom more or less is the Flyers' third goaltender. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, if Jones, how short of a leash is Jones going to have? I know he hasn't played a game yet, and I'm already leaping to that conclusion. But by hook or by crook, if Sandstrom, who did play well yesterday, if he keeps up his play, and we have some, I guess, volatile moments in the net, will we see a guy like that this year? It kind of hit me. I'm like, yeah, anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but I think if we get to Christmas and the Flyers are really on the cusp of contending or whatever, I don't think you see Martin Jones. I think he gets moved somewhere. I just don't, unless he's like blowing the doors off, and you sit there and Dylan Ball does a great job of getting himself out of his head or whatever it is. I just don't see him being here by February, unless he's just like showing lights out. And I can't. As much as I followed the Sharks over the years, I just don't see that coming to fruition with him.
Yeah, I'm. We're on pins and needles with Martin Jones, but you got to give him a chance. You got to give Kim Dillaball an opportunity to work with him, and that leads into the next topic I wanted to cover here because we didn't get to it last week with Charlie and Dan, but Elliot Friedman really had a lot of interesting things to talk about in 2 of his 32 thoughts. And throwing the whole Robin Lehner thing aside, I mean, he's just, who knows what was going on in his mind. We'll have to wait and see what happens with some of the other things they're investigating every other week. Now, there's always revelations all the time, So he talked a lot about the spirit of negativity, a spiral of negativity we couldn't escape. And I don't not want to rehash that completely, but one thing I thought in his notes was the first time meeting of Kim Dillaball and Dustin Schwartz, who also happens to be the goaltending coach of the Edmonton Oilers and Carter's personal coach. They actually met on the ice. I think it was out in Edmonton. And they tried to settle kind of like any communication problems or anything that might have come up last year that confused Carter, maybe different, whether it's verbiage, I don't know. But it's very interesting how his setup didn't look right, and he just was not the same guy, obviously, in 2020. And I just found it interesting that the Flyers went that far to have these 2 guys put their heads together all in the same place with Carter Hart.
Well, it's not off base, I don't think. I mean, look, if you buy a nice car, you get nice insurance. You buy a nice house, you get nice insurance. You sign a goalie that you believe has like a huge future in this league and could be something special and something this franchise hasn't had in 25 years, then you're going to go to reasonable extremes to protect your investment, so to speak. So, and I think that's what they did there. I don't think it should be surprising at all. I mean, it's smart business. You want to do whatever you can to make your as Dan would say, because Dan is a ponies guy, your prize stallion ride nice. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So and it makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and I remember hearing Jeff Marek say when they discussed it on their podcast, like, you'd be surprised how many goaltenders have their own coach, and it's separate from the guy who's connected with the team because it goes back a long time, or whether it's because they're in a certain region. And he was surprised that it doesn't happen more often. So the Flyers were trying to dot every I and cross every T. So, and they talked about that in the practice time. So the bottom line, when you think about the 32 thoughts, the column, the podcast, and with regard to the Flyers, was the Flyers were looking at everything. Chuck Fletcher was determined to never go through a cluster like that again. So everybody took a hit. Chuck said, hey, this is my fault. Coaches, look in the mirror. Players, obviously, look in the mirror. But listen to the players during the exit interviews and say, hey, what's going on here? And it was just a collective failure from everybody. And everybody, took accountability. So we'll see how that works out. In the first game, it was in and out. But, hey, look, from the time they started the season last year until now, they turned over 1/3 of the players. And, I'm including guys like Raffle and some of the other guys that sent out of town. So that's a lot. That's a lot of turnover.
Yeah. I remember when we had Jason on, we were previewing. It was right before, I think, the draft and free agency, and I made a joke. I said, realistically, they need to change 3 defensemen, get a 1B goalie, like 5 or 6 forwards, got to go and get moved around. And I said, "Do you think that's too much?" And he laughed. He laughed at me, and he said, "Yeah, that's a lot of moves." I mean, I made a joke about it. I wasn't joking though. I mean, just from what I saw, that's what they needed. This is what that team needed. It needed the fresh faces. It needed to change the culture. And here we are. We all laughed about it, and we thought, well, it's never going to happen, and it happened. I mean, I give props to Fletcher. I mean, like, we haven't seen stuff like this in 20 years since Mr. Snyder was around. Like, when he would go, "That's it. I'm not standing for this," and he would go out and good or bad, and Homer was part of it too. Good or bad, shit got done. I mean, it might not have been for good or bad, and these remain to be seen too.
Yeah.
Because there's, we did get a little bit older on this team, so it's not like we're that young team. We're banking on these kids anymore. No, we got a healthy mix. I think a healthier mix of veterans in there to not make us so fragile or fragile anymore.
Right, yeah, you go with the French pronunciation. Yeah, the Flyers are
there you go.
The fourth oldest team in the league, but a lot of those parts are kind of like, detachable. It's not like they're locked in. They're a bunch of older players per se. Chef, we have the opportunity to catch our colleague on the road. Let's see if we can hook up with the great Dan Silver and get his thoughts, because he was at the game. And it's always good to get his insight. And Dan, the great Dan Silver, joins us right now. Dan, how are you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you know what? I was so excited to go to this game because obviously it's the first game since COVID that I've been to, and the first game that they had a full house at. And it was just electric. I tell you what, it was funny. At the start of the game, they did the introductions. Everyone was all revved up, and they did the introductions for like all 15 of the coaches. And people kind of got like a little worn out a little bit. So I was like, man, I wish I hadn't done that. It was the first goal was awesome. And then it was kind of, it was a little quiet a little bit. But the way it ended with the 2 goals in the last 2.5 minutes, I mean, that place was electric. And I was sitting down in the end where they scored both the goals at the end. And that last goal, I was sitting there and I said to my buddy, I said, Giroux's like wants it off the wall from Couturier. He's like pointing at it. Yep. And then watching that pass, Couturier bank it off behind the net, coming out right on Giroux's stick, and he puts it up. I don't know if it was off of Demko's helmet or what it was, but right in. I mean, that was like, there might not be a cooler goal scored all year long, at least in the regular season, than that goal. I mean, it was just fantastic. So it was just awesome being there with the full stadium and just a lot of fun. Obviously, I think that, you guys might have already talked about it, but I think that if the goalies had been reversed, I think the Flyers would have won that game. I think that Thatcher Demko really kind of kept the Canucks in it early on, and then the Pettersson goal was just a strange goal that I feel like if Hart was confident and his positioning was a little better, that wouldn't have happened. And then the fourth goal was just such a goofy goal. It's like Carter Hart prides himself on being calm, composed, his great positioning, and I still think that maybe he's trying to, get some of the rust off from last year and get that mental miasma to kind of clear a little bit. But yeah, all in all, I think it was a decent first game. We still suck in the shootout.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I was saying earlier that Carter, for all of his efforts to rally and kind of get his confidence, his game together in the third period in the overtime, he looked completely overmatched in the shootout. But, listen, I'll give him a mulligan for one game. But, yeah, that second period was a little bit alarming. At first he looked rusty with some of his positioning and his post integrity. And then, like you were saying, that, some of these goals, it's like if he was more confident and more calm, it wouldn't have turned out the way it did. But it's one game, so we don't want to get crazy. But after the way they kind of rushed him along, I'm always going to kind of maintain that he's kind of at a deficit no matter what we do, and we can't get that time back. Thatcher Demko, on the other hand, spent almost 100 games in the AHL, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Demko's bigger than Hart, I think, and you can kind of tell out there. And, I think that, ultimately I don't think that Hart not having the time in the AHL is going to like impact his ultimate ceiling, but I just think that we still have to keep in mind that he's probably 2 or 3 years younger than Demko. So I'm still not 100% sold that Hart is going to be a franchise number one goalie. I mean, just because all we really had was a fairly small sample size that first year and kind of his terrific junior career to go on. And a lot of guys have really good junior careers. So, we're all hoping he's going to get there. But I think I've said on previous podcasts, like a lot of people are just assuming he's going to get back to that level and continue his trajectory towards being like a Carey Price type of goalie. And I'm not convinced of that, which makes me happier that we've got a kid like Samuel Ersson, who I think has really high upside also. But it's clearly, it's going to be a work in progress with this team. So I think there's going to, and Charlie mentioned that on our season preview, I'd asked him about if the fact that the Flyers have kind of a light schedule early on helps them out. And he said, well, he cautioned that, with all the new guys, it's probably going to take a little bit of time, especially with Hayes out, to kind of get acclimated and get everything going.
Yeah. I think Carter, referring back to him, I think it's just going to be a little bit of a rockier road than maybe it had to be. And I see Carter's ceiling as kind of like a Chris Osgood, one of those steady Eddie guys that you can win with if you have enough pieces around him. But I don't think he'll be at the bottom of the top third. Like, the maybe 11th or 12th, the best.
I would sign up for that right now.
Yeah, to me, that's a ceiling. He'll never be up in the stratosphere with guys like Vasilevsky. I just don't see it. He just doesn't have the size or the physical, the athleticism. But that doesn't mean we can't be happy that he's here. It's up to him. It's up to him to do it at this point.
Yeah, I'm driving up. I'm going back. I have so much driving this weekend. I drove up to Philly from DC on Thursday, and I went to the Eagles Bucks game, and then I went to the Flyers Canucks game, and then I was going to stay the weekend, but I had 2 roller hockey playoff games this morning in DC. So I had to drive back to DC on Saturday, and we won one of the 2 playoff games. And now I'm driving back from DC to Philly so I can go to the game tomorrow night with my mom. So it's a lot of driving, and hopefully the Flyers are able to pull out a win tomorrow. Yeah,
driving is a bane of my existence. But, Chef...
You drive a lot, Isaiah?
I do not. I used to drive the whole state of Florida, and I used to go into Metro Atlanta, my last job, and then that was like before my car accident. And that's a killer. Yeah, that's unfortunate for me. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. Just we have to let them play the games. They got Seattle on Monday against the Bruins on Wednesday. It's always a tough game. They always play us tough, even if they're not that great. And they're still a decent team. And then, of course, a team that could be powerhouse on Saturday, the Florida Panthers. Boy, they look good. They're just blowing out the Islanders last night. So one thing we didn't get a chance to get into, Dan, the Flyers Hall of Fame. I know it's not your favorite topic. Paul Holmgren and Rick Tocchet are going to be going in, but I thought there was a tinge of irony because, Dan, in our last show, we talked about, AV could be on the hot seat if it's Thanksgiving or a little bit afterwards and the Flyers are really struggling out of the gate. And one of the guys who's going into this Hall of Fame is going to be here on November 16th. Rick Tocchet. Well, certainly Paul Holmgren's not going to be doing anything. He's more or less retired. Wouldn't that be something if a guy like Rick Tocchet was in a position, if AV was in trouble, to be the coach of the Flyers? That just kind of hit me. Maybe I'm crazy.
It would be something else. And I think you'd mentioned on our last show with Charlie that poll that came out at The Athletic where they asked all the reporters who they thought would be the likeliest coach to get fired early in the season, and Vigneault was second on the list.
After Travis Green. Yeah.
I think they'd have to get off to a really, really bad start for Vigneault to get fired. Because you think about it, both of the assistant coaches are guys that Vigneault has brought in that have taught their systems. I feel like if you get rid of Vigneault, you probably also have to get rid of Mckeown and Michel Therrien. I'm not sure. I think they're really going to have to be bad early on for Vigneault to get fired, and I don't think they're going to be that bad early on. But yes, Rick Tocchet's probably a kind of guy they might try and look at, and he really didn't have much of a shot in Arizona. With that team was so bad. So
the management, the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, would you want to see Tocchet in there?
You know what? If they're still struggling after what they went through, they never recovered after they left. When they had the shutdown with the pandemic, even when they came back from the bubble, they weren't quite the same team. We all know what a cluster last year's team was, and if they're still struggling by then, I'm open for anything. My gut feeling, and Chef, you weigh in here. My gut feeling is if they did make a move, the guy Chuck knows the best after hiring AV is a guy like Mckeown, but Mckeown's never won or done anything anywhere as a head coach.
Yeah, and it's going to be more of the same system. So I think if you, like to Dan's point, if you're going to change coaches, you're going to have to change all three of them at least, because or four. In the replay coach, a friend of Vigneault too, now the new guy. So I just don't. I think you're all in all or nothing on this coaching staff. I mean, Chuck bent over backwards to give everybody what they wanted on that coaching staff, and to his point, he's made players accountable, and now it's up to the coaches. Like, if you can't win with what you asked for, this is what you wanted. We gave you the team you wanted, and if you're not going to win with that, then and rightfully so, it should be on the coaches.
Yeah, exactly. And Dan, we talked about that earlier with the Friedman comments about how everybody in the organization looked in the mirror and wanted full accountability.
Yeah. Does Vigneault get a little bit of a pass early on because of Hayes being out, especially if, I thought that the Lawton, JVR, Lindblom line was fairly invisible in that first game, and I'm not sure how much sustained scoring Derek Brassard's going to be able to bring. I mean, it seems like Hayes being out is kind of a big deal.
That's a good point. Their center play after Couturier is iffy. I like what I've seen from Brassard, but I think we all know that we've seen veterans like Filppula and others before him just kind of fade. There's a reason why he's making $900,000. If your team is being held together by guys like Yandel and Brassard, and you're bringing in guys like Patrick Brown to be the salvation for your PK, maybe there's something fundamentally wrong, whether it's personnel-wise or what have you.
If it comes down to where this PK is not working again, it's on the coaches. I think you've got enough competent staff on that roster now. I mean, the way, until you go back 2 seasons when Farabee first came up, one of his sticking points was like, I want to stay on a team. How do I stay on a team? I got to make myself important. I got to be, and he learned to penalty kill just so he could add another level to his game. Now you have people like Lindblom, who's noticeably better than he was last year, obviously. So you have players that can play the positions. I'm really gonna sit there because I can see a difference in the power play. I don't see a difference in the penalty kill yet. And isn't going back to the whole coach thing? Isn't that Yo's responsibility? Isn't he on PK? So I'm not confident that he would get that nod if you decided to nix AV anyway. But I'm going to say with the coaches, you need to hold the coaches accountable. I think it's a system thing at this point. I want to see some kind of fundamental change because all they did was collapse back in that box and they fell short. Nobody was challenging. Even Coots wasn't challenging, and he's one of the better ones. Although I did think that Cam Atkinson did a pretty good play when he fed it to Nate Thompson.
Yeah.
I just made a joke about literally 20 seconds before that going, you know what, it's about time for Cam Atkinson shorthanded goal. And I'm like, oh, and then he gave it to, of course he gives it to Stone Hands, but otherwise, I just think it's going to be a system thing, I think.
Yeah, Dan, do you think that Patrick Brown is somebody who could supplant a guy like Thompson if they just see a little more success from that unit?
Maybe. I mean, that first game was a tough one to judge them on because, Vancouver's power play, and they had a two-man advantage, but their power play is just with Pettersson and Quinn Hughes out there, and you saw it also in the 3-on-3 overtime. Like, those two guys are so good with additional space and time and the puck. So it's, I'm going to reserve judgment, I think, a little bit on the PK just, till we get a little bit further into the season. But yeah, I mean, it didn't certainly give much cause for optimism in the preseason. The power play is another thing where I was watching the Columbus game. I don't know if it was last night or 2 nights ago. And yeah, I think that Atkinson's going to bring a lot to the table in terms of the enthusiasm and the shoot first mentality and the goal scoring. But I tell you what, and you could see it on the power play. Without Voracek, they do not necessarily have a guy on this team now that's what I would, call exceptional at skating with the puck through the neutral zone and kind of breaking into the zone on the power play. So I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue. I think they're going to have to kind of find someone to be able to do that because Voracek was doing it in the Columbus game I was watching, and he was so good at that when he was with the Flyers. So there's obviously pluses to Atkinson, but I think that's going to be something that they may miss on the power play too.
Well, yeah, his zone entry ability is definitely one of the elite parts of his game. I mean, that for all that we didn't like about him. But, of course, Atkinson drives that net and gets that, second goal. It was such an important goal for them to come back in that game. So it's give and take. It was, for us, all of us that were tired of Jake, you have to recognize, like, Dan, like what you're saying, I mean, there are some aspects of his game that were pretty critical for what the Flyers want to do.
I got a quick question for Dan because we spoke to it before you came on. The atmosphere down at the game, when Atkinson gets that goal, and he, you said we could see how fired up he was and how happy he was and all that. And then he skates over to the bench and literally he pumps up that entire team. Could you guys feel all that down there? I mean, when you were there, did you see a visible shift in the whole arena and the team when that happened?
So, I think for me the loudest it was the last 2 minutes. Everyone was standing up, but Atkinson's enthusiasm, I think, is absolutely something that will convey to fans and that will get fans going in the building. So, yeah, I think that having a guy like that who gets that excited and pumped up when they score with the great goal celebrations it can only help. What do you guys think of the goal song?
You know what? I wasn't big. I didn't care. Just play it. I just hope whatever song it is, I didn't care as long as they keep playing it. Like that means they're scoring goals. So I'll take 4 goals. Let's if we can average 4 goals a game, we're going to win more than we lose.
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't even know what it is. What was the choice?
Tarzan Boy?
It was No, they didn't pick Tarzan Boy. That's what I was hoping they were going to go with. No, it was there were 3 finalists. First of all, I was hoping it was going to be Call on Me, which they didn't have in the finalists. And then the finalists were some Real Big Fish song, and then Tarzan Boy, which is what I wanted. And then the other one's like a techno song that got no chatter in the preseason. It's called like The Girl or something. I forget what it's called. It might be The Girl. And I think that one of the players must have really pushed for it because it didn't really get that much play. But no, you know what? After the game, I couldn't get it out of my head, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. I would say I'm going to leave with that because I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard to see. It's hard to hear it though if you're not right there. So unless they actually, bury it, zoom in on it, and you get to hear it, you really don't notice. I didn't notice a difference because you hear the horn going off and that's it.
Yeah, I mean the only ones I noticed were Dupe and Broham and stuff like that. And Mac Miller was never a goal song. That was something they played in the locker room.
Celebration song. It was a winning song.
Right.
In the locker room. Yeah.
That was pretty
Well,
cool.
I don't know if they have one of those this year. I guess they haven't won a game yet, so we'll find out.
They got to earn that, baby.
We'll
I
see
did.
that.
The highlight of my trip was I did get a cheesesteak at Jim's.
Oh,
Yes,
I know,
we
I
saw that.
that.
I retweeted that on the account.
So exciting. Fantastic.
That's
understandable.
a hard spot on a Friday night, man. God bless you for getting in and out as fast as you did.
Yeah, well, we went before the game, so we went there around 5:15. Grabbed the cheesesteak.
I guess that ain't too bad. Yeah.
Ate
that's
there,
good.
and then made it down to the arena in time. It all worked out pretty well. So
Excellent.
so that was good. The Eagles game, we were in the parking lot after the Eagles game for an hour. I mean, it was just horrible. And Flyers games, I park in the NovaCare lot. It's just quick, in and out.
Yeah.
But
So you get the game tomorrow. Dave Hackstall and the Kraken, who already have their first victory, so you don't have that psychological hang up or victory for them. They've already won, so it's just game on.
yeah, I was thinking about this. Are they going to have that kind of win one for the Gipper attitude because they know that Hackstall used to coach here, where hopefully the Flyers players will have a little bit of extra ammo and motivation to beat Hackstall. So it should be a good one. Seattle's been pretty competitive in all their games so far. They're certainly not explosive. They're not explosive at all. They don't have a whole lot of offensive talent, but guys like Jared McCann could put up big numbers there, and I'm sure it'll be a competitive game. I would think.
Eberle still looks good. He still looks like he's still got some gas in the tank left. He was when he had the puck, it seemed like everybody swarms to him, and it's leaving his line mates open because they know he can dance with the puck.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
Yeah, a little bit dangerous. They're no Vegas.
I'm thinking Oscar Lindblom. Right, exactly. Yeah, definitely not. I'm thinking Oscar Lindblom scoring the winning goal would be retribution. That would be. But he's the one that was scratched for the last game of what year? Was that 19 or 18?
19.
Season?
19.
And for Yuri Latura.
Yeah, or it might have been. You might. Yeah, no, it was 19. I think. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm not sure which one it was. But
I'm just looking at the standings, and the Kraken's in second place, and my stomach just turned. I know it's early, but it's still.
They've played more games than most teams, I believe.
Yeah, they got three under their belt. Them and the Canucks. I think the West Coast teams are, the Northwest teams. I guess they're getting more play because they got to travel further, so they get more recoup time.
Is the Flyers Bruins game on the road?
No, they're all at home. They're at home this whole week. Yeah, the 18th, the 20th, Monday, Wednesday, and then on Saturday they finish up their homestand against the Florida Panthers. Really, really tough game there. I would think Martin Jones, maybe he could play versus the Bruins, but then I'm thinking, well, they have 3 days off after Florida and 2 days off between the Bruins and the Panthers. They might as well play hard, and then they have a back-to-back on Wednesday and Thursday with Edmonton and Vancouver, and then definitely would probably see Martin Jones one of those games.
Yeah, they're on the road after that.
Yeah,
all Western Conference.
Yeah, Edmonton and Vancouver back-to-back, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday night against Calgary.
Flames, right? Yeah.
Calgary, man, what about Sam Bennett getting a hat trick? And they traded, I don't know what they got, 2 second-round draft picks. And right now, Sam Bennett is just kicking butt ever since he got to Florida. He's not going to be able to keep that up. But
still.
that's one of those change of scenery situations.
Oh, definitely.
I was just joking. I thought we might see Martin Jones on Friday night a little bit.
Oh, yeah. You know what?
Carter Hart kept.
Oh, yeah.
If he let in a bad goal in the third period or something, you're not crazy. I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
In fact,
I
said
think
earlier,
whether or not Martin Jones gets a game in this week will probably depend a lot on how Carter Hart plays tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dispute that one bit.
No. In fact, I said earlier, Dan, that I always remember what you said about Felix Sandstrom. It was maybe, just maybe, crossing our fingers, Felix Sandstrom has started to turn a corner in his career. Started last year, came out, looked good in camp, this year with the Flyers, and then, played well yesterday. Maybe this guy, it just took longer because he's got the athleticism, a little bit better size than Carter. I'm not saying he's as good a prospect, never said that. But I know back in the day, he was somebody you liked at least as well at the time.
I had him, and Charlie gives me crap about it. At one point, I had Felix Sandstrom one notch above Carter Hart on the goalie of the Flyers' top prospect list, because Felix Sandstrom was a high draft pick, and he was fantastic in the World Junior Championships. He never had put up gaudy numbers in the Swedish Hockey League, but that's a league against professionals. It's tough for a young kid to play in that league. Right. And then he missed almost an entire year when he had, I guess they called it a hiatal hernia, where he had some kind of physical ailment that he was out almost an entire season. And so, goalies are late developers in general, and Sandstrom has not really had a linear path with his health. So I think the potential's there for Sandstrom. It's kind of cool that both the goalies on the Phantoms are from Sweden. They're from towns that are literally an hour drive apart. They both played for the same SHL team, Brynäs, however you pronounce it.
I think it's
Brynäs, Alex Appleyard here to help with the pronunciations. But, it's kind of cool that we've got the two Swedes in the AHL, and hopefully one or both of them will become legitimate NHL goalies.
Yeah, we'll see. If we were speculating earlier that, if Martin Jones really gets off to a tough start and you're coming off of 3 bad years in a row, if Kim Dillabaugh can't work his magic, wouldn't be crazy to see Sandstrom up here. We're not hoping for any of these scenarios. You can tell we've all been a little bit wounded by what we went through last year. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea. We're just kind of considering a lot of different things because this is a big freaking year. They have to do their business or get the hell off the pot, and the Flyers are going to go through a lot of changes. So with that, gents, we got a game tomorrow night. I told you, Wednesday against the Bruins, and Florida is coming in, that powerhouse, what could be a powerhouse. I picked them to win the Stanley Cup, not to win the Stanley Cup, to go to Stanley Cup Finals and be defeated by the Colorado Avalanche. I guess before we go, Jeff, it's time for you to answer the question. Are the Flyers going to make the playoffs? And besides that, who do you have as your Stanley Cup final, teams?
Wow. Okay. First, I think the Flyers will make it to. I think they make more moves, like you guys were alluding to on the show. I missed that this team is not going to look the same at the end. I think Chuck is too invested. I think when it comes down to it, he's going to make moves if he has to make this team better at the trade deadline. And I think they get to the Eastern Conference final, and I think they fall. They're definitely going to fall in the Eastern Conference finals. To who? Now that's going to be the big thing. I can see Tampa Bay going back again, but I think they're going to lose to Florida. I think Florida goes to the Cup. I think they go, and they might. See, that's the thing. I think it's going to be – I'm torn. I go back and forth between between Colorado and Vegas. But I think it's going to be Vegas and Florida in the Cup.
Okay. You said not too dissimilar from what I said. But, there you go. We'll see what happens with that.
Who'd you say?
I said that it was going to be the Islanders versus Florida in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Panthers would win. And then I think I picked Vegas and Colorado. I picked Colorado to win and to defeat the Panthers to win the Stanley Cup. And I did say that the Flyers were going to win. We're going to make it to the playoffs. Would sneak in one of the wild card spots. And, Dan, you get the last word. You said they were going to make the playoffs. But I think you wanted to hold your betting money off till later in the season, right?
So who do you think, I'm just curious, Isaiah, who do you think you think that Bobrovsky's going to be the guy, or you think that the young kid Spencer Knight's going to,
Knight.
It's going to have to be Knight by the end of the year. I think Bob's off to a nice start. I don't believe in Bob anymore.
His longevity has never been a factor. I think he just fizzles out by the end of the season. And Knight, it's about time. You got to go with Knight. You got to see he proved himself pretty good last year. I think he could have. He's going to end up being the goalie by the end of the year.
That's what I'm yelling. That's what I'm thinking. I think he's kind of like Carter Hart in a lot of ways. He's just got a little bit better size, a little bit better athletic package. So Dan, you get the last word.
Yeah, I don't know about the cup predictions. I not to sound like a broken record, but I think that the Islanders would probably be my pick from the East to get there, and Florida obviously looks very good early on. I think, especially if it's Spencer Knight, he may end up needing a little bit more playoff experience before he makes kind of like a long, sustained run in the playoffs as a starting goalie. And Bobrovsky, it'd be a great story if Bobrovsky could kind of turn it around from last year. Yeah. I'm not sure about Vegas. I think they may take a little bit of a step back this year. It looks like Pacioretty's out for like 6 to 8 weeks, and Mark Stone's a little bit banged up. And I really don't think that Robin Lehner is all that great of a goalie. And no. I'm not sure I'd want to rely on him for a long, sustained playoff runs. So I think that, between them and Colorado, I think I prefer Colorado. I think Kemper theirs is going to work out pretty well. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are some dark horse teams that kind of pop up in that conference. I think that the Wild are a decent team. I think that they'll probably continue to move forward. Dallas is an intriguing rebound team. So, I think the Islanders from the East, I'm still not sure yet on the West. Probably want to watch a little bit more hockey early in the season and kind of try and get a good read. It's obviously they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but I'm impressed by how Detroit's been playing early on. I think that Steve Yzerman's been doing a really good job with the rebuild there, and that's a team that I think a few years down the road could become definitely a real powerhouse.
Yeah, they just need Zadina to be what they thought he was going to be. They just need him to kind of turn that corner.
Yeah. Yep. But Moritz Seider looks like he's going to be a Norris Trophy winning defenseman someday. I mean, he looks really good.
And the Devils, I'm just going to say, I know the last couple preseason, previews we've had, I've gotten the Devils in the way the chips fell, and I don't think they might be on the cusp of playoffs this year, but they're good 1 or 2 seasons away from being a real pain in the ass in this division too. So throw them in the mix down the line too. I think it's very similar to a Detroit situation where their rebuild has been very good as well.
They're going to be a fun team. If you're a Devils fan, you have to feel like, hey, things are really starting to look up. They got Dougie Hamilton and a couple other players, and they bought some real insurance in goal by bringing in Bernier. So, and they're always going to give us fits. No, I don't care how they could be in last place. That team just has certain players that, even when the guys like Elias leave the scene, they're replaced by guys like Miles Wood, and now this other guy is Sharangovich. Yeah, just killing us. And it's he's in the Elias position, scoring that last goal just to kill us on a Saturday afternoon. There's Saturday afternoon games in Jersey.
They're mush. They are so mush.
We could never beat the Devils, and never beat them. And then the worst series of all time was that Flyers Devils series where the Flyers were up 3 games. They lost game 1, and then they won 3 in a row. And man, I was already planning the Cup parade, and then they lose game 5, and then Lindros comes back in game 6, and kind of things just go downhill. Game 7, Lindros takes that hit, and Elias scores the goal. I mean, that series is still, unfortunately, for bad reasons, is my most memorable Flyers series. And it's just, they need something to wash the taste of that out of my mouth, but it hasn't happened yet. The Bruins series, where they came back from 3-0, was good, but the team, didn't end up going on to win the Cup. So.
Yeah, and you hear Bundy say that was the best team the Flyers had since '97.
Wow, that's true. He said that, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a real frustrating year, and Boucher was on fire. Yeah, and they had a chance in 2012, but that Devils team had it all together until they ran into the Kings. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up there, gents. Just a reminder, like Dan said, he had a chance to go to Jim South Street, 400 South Street. Check it out if you're down there. And if you live down there, 40 years of the best cheesesteaks and hoagies you could ever want in the finest Philadelphia tradition. Check it out. Jim's, South Street, 400 South Street. And, of course, they use DoorDash if you live down there. So always a good time and a good meal if you go to Jim's. And with that, Dan, we're going to let you wrap up first since you're on the road. Give us your contact info if you would.
Yep. So folks can find me on Twitter at dsilver88. The 88's for the Big E, Eric Lindros.
Yeah. I had a feeling that's what it was. Dan, thanks for calling in. We really appreciate it. Chef?
Yeah.
And guess what? If Dan can make it to Jim's on South, so can you. In fact, he might hit it up on the way back, on the drive back. So, but I wouldn't put it past you. You can find me at Chef to Left B on Twitter. You know, if you want to argue with me, I'm all about arguing. I like a good argument.
All right. Well, I'm Isaiah, ISAIAH _520. If you are a trepidatious one, you will follow my account, Isaiah. Don't forget the _520. And, of course, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck on Twitter. We have 12 or 13 different formats. Give us a follow or a subscription, depending on which platform that you follow us on. You have a Facebook page. We supposedly have a Gab account. I don't know for how much longer, and people don't seem to care. If you could give us a 5-star review, and if you could please subscribe, it moves us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcast. And we're going to come back next week. I'm thinking next Monday or Tuesday, but we'll see. And by then, the Flyers will have played 3 games, and we will go through those, and hopefully they will be all wins, but we'll have to see. Until then, everybody, take care.